Hello, and welcome to my world record speedrun of Deus Ex Human Revolution. The run starts at a save that we have right at the beginning of this prologue sequence. There's a bunch of intro stuff that has a lot of story and cutscenes, and none of it is at all interesting to speedrun, so we just have a save there so that we can get started with the fun stuff right away, and not have to wait through 4 minutes of boring stuff right at the start. So pretty soon here I'm going to be doing a glitch that we're going to use pretty often throughout the run. It's called object clipping. It's where you use an object to clip through a wall, sometimes into an out-of-bounds area, sometimes just into an adjacent room. It is of course very, very useful, and breaks a lot of the game totally in half. It's usually done with either a fire extinguisher or a box. This one is done with an extinguisher, and you're through the room. There's a cutscene that happens in this room with Barrett, but since we skipped the trigger that actually starts it, Barrett is just in the T position ready to start his cutscene, but he never gets his day in the sun. We'll see him again later during his boss fight for about like 2 seconds. There is another clip in the prologue, but it's very, very difficult to pull off. We usually don't get it. I think I've only done it maybe like 6 or 7 times ever. There's a door coming up here, and you can clip through the wall next to it with the fire extinguisher, but it's so precise that I usually don't get it, and in this case I also did not get it, but I go for it a little bit. Oh, actually I completely missed. Okay, so if you throw the fire extinguisher in the wrong way, it can take enough damage by hitting the wall that it just blows up. So I didn't even get to attempt it this time. Forgot about that. If in case you're wondering why everybody is speaking in French, that's because, as with many things in speedruns, it's faster. There are a lot of dialogues that you have to wait through in the game, and those dialogues take a different amount of time depending on which language is being spoken, just because the audio files are literally of different lengths. And the other runners to this game, I think particularly Heinke, spent a lot of time testing every single language that you can possibly choose for this game, and it was found that French is the faster language. So everything is in French. The text is still in English because this game allows you to select a different language for both text and audio, which is super useful. During this bit right here, I have to wait for Seraph to stop talking to me before I can start the conversation with Pritchard, so I have a little bit of extra time to wander around, so I open those doors just because I'm going to have to move through them later, and it's a bit faster to open them now. Then I grab the Pro Energy bar because I'll need energy much later in the game as I'm using stealth, and I also read that ebook thing, and that gives me a little bit of extra experience for leveling up augments later on. Most of the conversations in this game can be skipped, and all of the cutscenes can be skipped, but this is one of the conversations, one of the very few conversations that you can't actually do anything to skip, so you just have to wait through it. And this conversation is one of the ones that's faster in French. I think it's like 2 seconds faster in French than in English. You may notice a number in the top left, it's sort of in purple, it says 79.9, and that is the frame rate. Glitches in this game, particularly object clipping, are frame rate dependent, so sometimes they work much better with low frame rates, and some of them work much better with high frame rates. And we found that 80 frames per second is a good compromise, so that all of the skips in the game are reasonably consistent. So we use an external program. I use MSI Afterburner to lock the frame rate at 80. Just to make all that easier. Now we're going to head on to the first actual mission of the game. And again, here I have a little bit of extra time because I have to wait for Seraph to stop talking, so I just open all the doors. The first mission in the game is Seraph Manufacturing, where you have to... there's a side mission where you save hostages, but obviously I'm not going to bother with that. And then you have to stop the guys that are infiltrating the factory and stealing the Typhoon. This is one of the parts of the run where you can hear me on my stream just mashing my spacebar, because that's how you skip through cutscenes, so every single time I'm at one of these things, I'm just mashing spacebar the whole time and it's super loud. But since this is post-commentary, you don't have to wait through that. This is a clip that I only started doing pretty recently, where you can clip through that gate and then not have to walk around through where the SWAT officers are waiting. It saves about 4 seconds. And it also causes the guards in this area not to spawn, because you skip past the trigger that makes them spawn, so you can just run along the ground and nobody's here. As you're doing that clip, if you hold backwards, you can actually just fall through the entire level, so you have to be careful when doing it. There are a bunch of enemies in this area, but they don't do all that much damage. I'm playing the game on easy difficulty because, again, it's faster. Later on I'll be changing to normal for reasons that I'll explain later, but the first, I think, 2/3 of the game is all played on easy difficulty. The enemies still deal quite a bit of damage, really, so you have to be careful with how you aggro them. But the enemies in this area aren't that bad. Of course, we don't waste time with hacking because we just know all the codes. This decontamination room, you have to wait a bit before the exit door is available to open. But as you're waiting, you can try that clip with the box, and it's not a terribly difficult clip, and you can just pass right through. Basically, the reason that object clipping works is that you hold a object in front of you. I'm going to be doing it again in this decontamination room for the same reason. And you release it as you're walking backwards towards a wall, and the game is sort of confused about how to reconcile all the collision stuff going on, so it just pushes you through the wall. There, by crouching behind that box, I meant to hide from those guys as they were turning around, but I didn't do it quite right, so they still aggroed onto me. And if they do that, there's a pretty good chance that they'll just kill you as you're passing through that room, but I got lucky and they didn't quite deal enough damage. I pick up a Praxis kit there so I can get an extra level up point for later on. I also hide behind that box. If I don't do that, then the turret would deal too much damage and kill me. If you get to that area with full health, you don't have to worry about hiding because the turret deals, I think, exactly like 74 damage as you're walking through. But I had less than 74 health, so I had to hide, and that wasted a small amount of time. So I have to give a lot of thanks to everybody else that runs this game. I've only been running this game for about 3 weeks, so I'm responsible for like none of the tech or glitches or strategies or like anything. Everything I'm doing I just learned from other guys, so I've really enjoyed running this game. It's actually really fun, one of my favorite speedruns right now at least. So major thanks to Pennigan, Heinke, Yilmarie, Multi-Winner, Jim Numrick, F. Paul, Dr. T-Chops, and everybody else that runs this game. They're all amazing people. You can go to speedrun.com/dxhr, and I'll put a link in the description. And you can find the links to all their PBs, and you can follow them. They're all great. Here there's a cool glitch where you can quick save right as that next room loads before the cutscene starts, and then quick load, and that skips the conversation with that guy. It also gives you a chance of skipping some of this conversation with Seraph, which is called an infolink skip, but as far as we can tell it's completely luck-based, or at least we don't fully understand it, so we can't get it consistently. And I actually missed it in this run. So between missing the second prologue clip and also not getting this infolink skip, I've lost at least like 20 or 25 seconds compared to what a perfect run would be. So there's still definitely a lot of time that you can save. But other than missing those mostly luck-based elements, this is still a pretty smooth run. All the other clips were gotten first try, which is pretty great. Now, just skipping through some more conversations, you have to return to this Seraph building a number of times and just skip through a bunch of conversations to be able to advance the plot. It's one of the areas where you can't really do anything, because you don't have access to your weapons and there aren't any movable objects, so you can't like clip through walls or shoot people to speed things along. Just gotta do what the game tells you to do, which is kind of annoying, but not much you can do about it. And this begins the Detroit 1 segments of the game. So there are 2 parts of the game where you have to make your way through Detroit. This is the first and the longest. There isn't actually all that much sequence breaking for the first maybe like third of the game, but after that it gets pretty crazy. But for the first third of the game, you pretty much have to complete all the objectives the game sets out in front of you. You can't skip any of them, although you can do them very, very quickly.
Right.
So skip a conversation, skip past that. Now we're off to Detroit proper. I also missed the elevator button a bit. I was not happy about that. This was an offline run. Almost all my actual world record attempts I do on stream, but occasionally I'll just say, alright, I only have time for 1 to 2 runs, I don't want to turn on my stream for it, and I just want to have some serious time, put on some music, and hammer this thing out. And this was actually my first and only run that I did on this particular day, yesterday at the time I'm recording this, and it was a world record, so done. I was really happy about that.
Madame Reed?
It's actually possible, maybe, to skip this conversation by unholstering your gun as she's coming up to you. It's called Old Lady Skip, but nobody I've seen has ever gotten it, so I'm still not entirely convinced that it's possible. One thing I should probably explain is why I'm jumping all the time. So in this game you have a sprint meter. It's at the upper left next to your energy bars. It's the thing with the 3 arrows that flash in and out. If you just do a combination of sprinting and walking, then of course you're going slower as you're walking. But if you jump right as your sprint runs out, you keep your sprint momentum as you're jumping, but your sprint meter also refills during that time. So you can basically keep your sprint speed all the time that you're running about. Here I'm leveling up sprint speed and jump height, so now I can jump really high, and I sprint a little bit faster, so sprint jumping is quite a bit easier to pull off, because you can spend a lot more time in the air. I also bought 2 energy jars, which I will use much later in the game once I level up stealth. And I bought 2 hypostims, which I'll use to refill health. And a praxis kit, which gives me an additional upgrade point, which I just used to upgrade. Now here I'm heading to the morgue, because you have to get the neural hub out from the hacker that was at Seraph Manufacturing, that I briefly sped by. Over the course of getting the neural hub from the hacker, I'm going to be angering basically everybody in the police department because I'm going to be shooting people. So on my way out, they're going to be angry at me, so I shoot that guy because he has a shotgun and can just one-shot you as you're leaving, so killing him on the way in ensures that you can survive on your way out. Nobody on the inside notices, fortunately. So here you can just drop straight down to the morgue by doing a clip here. I fail it at least once, which is unfortunate. I think I get it second try. Yeah. You sort of clip your way into the trash can, and then you crouch, and crouching takes you below the floor, so you just fall down to the next level. And then I shoot that guy before I enter, because otherwise he'll start a conversation with you once you enter the room, and conversations are slow. And now I have to wait for this conversation in the upper right with Seraph to finish before I can actually exit the level, so I take a little bit of extra time to pick up a hypostim back in the morgue area. And then I make my way out. I also use a hyperstim there inside the vent so I can survive all the gunshots. You usually have to use at least 1 hypostim on your way out, because you'll take enough damage to just die. And they'll be shooting at me out here, but these guys are not the most accurate, so I can just keep going. Next objective is to head to your apartments and use your computer so that Pritchard can investigate the neural hub. And there isn't really anything fancy going on about that. Alright, so at the beginning of Seraph Manufacturing, during the dialogue with Seraph in the helicopter, you have your choice about which weapon to choose. You can choose either long range or short range, and lethal or not lethal. And we choose lethal and short range because that gives you the revolver. And the advantage to the revolver is that if you choose the stun gun, which is close range and lethal and non-lethal, then you have to reload after every single shot, whereas the revolver gets 5 shots before you have to reload, so you can just wait until you're in an elevator to reload, because you can't normally sprint when reloading. And combat rifle... Honestly, combat rifle would probably work about as well, but revolvers are just so much cooler. So, brief little interlude there, and we're on to Derelict Row, which is the end of the Detroit 1 segment. Derelict Row is actually a very difficult area. If you get seen by the enemies in the first 2/3 of the area, then you have basically no hope of survival, so you have to do some kind of clever AI manipulation, where basically you sprint in one area, and then they turn around to look at you, and as they're doing so, you either run to the side of them or jump over them, so that they're never actually looking at you, even though they're looking for you. It's pretty subtle and pretty easy to mess up, but I think I get it pretty efficiently here. So now I'm entering Derelict Row, so if anybody sees me, they'll shoot me. I sprint past this guy, he turns around, but I get to the side of him before he can actually aggro. Same with those guys. They were turning around as I was jumping over them, and same with this guy. And I take this route on the shipping containers, which again avoids them actually looking at me. You need to turn off the transmission coming from an antenna on the roof nearby. I'm taking a quick detour to grab a couple frag grenades. The upgrade I picked up was just because it's faster to pick up than not to pick it up. I won't actually be using the upgrade. Here you can just carry the barrel over to the tire stack that I'm taking it, and nobody will shoot at you, but that's a little bit slower than just throwing it and sprinting over. Then I throw a grenade under it, and jump as the grenade blows up. Since I'm on the other side of the barrel, I don't take any damage from it, and the velocity of, or just the, I guess the push of the barrel as the grenade explodes under it gives you enough height to make it to the top of this roof without having to come through here. And now I have to wait for this conversation with Malik to end before I can actually exit the area, so I have some time to pick up these frag grenades, or frag mines, and these will be very useful later on, both for dealing damage and also for doing a similar sort of boost as I just did. Now we're heading on to FEMA. FEMA's a pretty fun area. You're normally supposed to go through a somewhat lengthy above ground section, and then a somewhat lengthy below ground section, and then there's a boss fight, and then you take an elevator back up to the helipad where Malik drops you off. But because I can just clip through walls whenever I want, so long as I have a box, we can actually just sort of go backwards and go to the elevator shaft that is supposed to take you from the boss room up to the helipad. And we just drop down that elevator shaft and skip straight to the boss fight. But in order to be able to do that, I need to have a box. So I'm heading over here purely just to pick up a box, which is down here on the right. I have some trouble picking it up, but I eventually get there. And now the roof of the building I just came from has more or less a roof that doesn't have collision, so you can just throw the box up and it falls right in front of you, which is always a bit entertaining to me. Then I'm taking this back to the door that you're supposed to exit from once you take the elevator back up, but I can just use this box to clip out of bounds, try and mess up once. Then I walk back so the door becomes unlocked, open the door, take the box with me. Then I mess up this clip as well. This was one of my worst sections of the game. But I'm able to clip through, and then right as I'm about to land, I go to my augments and level up Icarus Lighting System, which negates fall damage. If you level it up before you fall, then there's this lengthy animation. But if you level it up right before you hit the ground, it skips that entire animation, so it's faster. There's a boss fight in this room, so I'm just going to place 3 frag mines where Barrett shows up, and that was Barrett. And with the boss fight done, we just take the elevator up, as you're supposed to do. This is a really fun level. I actually feel like it's one of my better levels, so I'm kind of disappointed that it went so poorly. I think I lost about 8 seconds relative to my golds in this particular run. So if I could name like one area where I really wanted to improve this run, it would be FEMA. It's not that bad though. Then when I get back up to the helipad, I initiate a conversation with Malik, and then I have a bit of time before it actually exits the level, so I'm gonna head over to the Hero Baller, if he even is one. I don't know what gang he belongs to, whatever. So I shoot him in the head, grab his grenades, and Malik takes me out of here before those guys are able to kill me. With that done, we're back at Seraph. And once I'm done here in Seraph, we're going to be heading to Hengsha. Now, there's a pretty long quest line in Hengsha, which we more or less just totally skip by clipping through a single wall. So in this part, you're supposed to talk to both Seraph and Pritchard. If you talk to Pritchard first, then when you talk to Seraph, there's a big, long, unskippable dialogue that takes like 2 or 3 minutes. And obviously we don't want to go through that. But if you talk to Seraph first, then you don't have to wait through that. So we go to Seraph, and then we go down to Pritchard. We also skip past this conversation with Taggart. Then after talking to Seraph and Pritchard, we head off to Hengsha. So normally in Hengsha, you have to do a number of things, which I kind of forget, because it's been a few weeks since I actually played through the game normally. But at the end of it, the hacker guy, I forget his name, gives you a passport or employee badge or something that allows you to access the train that takes you to Taeyong Medical. Fortunately, the door that goes to Taeyong Medical has a wall next to it, and walls are no obstacle. So we just use a box clip through it. And again, with my movement in the entire game, I'm just trying to make sure I'm never just walking on the ground. I'm always either sprinting or jumping after a sprint, so I can maintain maximum speed. It's actually a pretty difficult technique to get right, especially when there are like roofs and stuff above you that can block you as you're jumping. So learning how to sprint jump effectively is definitely one of the small things that is a difficult thing to learn, but really rewarding to master. So now we're in Hengsha. Here I'm going to use the Icarus Landing System, which just activates automatically. And that's what negates your fall damage. If you level it up right before you hit the ground, then there's no animation. But you can only do that once, because once you level it up, you can't exactly unlevel it. And this is the box I'm going to be using to clip through the wall up ahead, so I'll be taking it with me. And now we just head off to where the Taeyong Medical train is. This box is actually fairly fragile, so you can't throw it too many times, so you try to limit the number of times you throw it so it doesn't break. There's the door, here's the wall, that was the wall, and we're off to Taeyong Medical. Which is also a pretty fun area. It involves what is, I think, my favorite glitch of the game, where we're going to use a fire extinguisher and a mine to boost ourselves up a great deal.
Malik, des nouvelles de Pritchard?
Je suis là, Jensen. J'étudie le plan de l'immeuble de Tai Yang Medical.
Parfait. Il faut que je puisse avoir accès à un terminal de
First bit is just sprinting through hallways. There's a door up ahead which is guarded by a guard. And normally when you open the door, the guard starts a conversation with you and you have the option to bribe him and he'll let you through. But the faster way of doing that is just to shoot the door before you open it. And then instead of talking to you, the guard will pull a gun, but you walk by him too fast for him to actually be able to shoot you. And that just skips the conversation with him. Then through this area, sometimes that guard will shoot you as you're walking by, and then all the enemies in this area will be aware of you, but fortunately he didn't get an opportunity to actually shoot, so I don't have to worry all that much. Here I take a lot of damage from this guy, and I really should have used a healing item, but for some reason I chose not to, and I got lucky, so that was risky, but it worked out. So now there will be a mine boost I do up ahead. It's fairly complicated. You have to grab a fire extinguisher, you have to take it out of bounds, you have to get yourself out of bounds, and then you have to get the fire extinguisher from one out of bounds area to another out of bounds area. Then you put the fire extinguisher down in a certain orientation, you put a mine on one side of it, and then you walk into the other side of it, and the mine explodes as the fire extinguisher gets knocked down, and that gives you a bunch of height. I missed the ladder there a couple times, unfortunately. So here's the fire extinguisher I'll be taking with me, and here's the elevator I'll be using, but we have to wait for it to get to the top. So I'll be taking this extinguisher with me. I also have to send the elevator back down, but get out of the elevator before it starts moving. I'm not actually sure why that's required. I've never tried doing this without doing it, but it is necessary. So once the elevator reaches its destination, I'm going to drop off the fire extinguisher outside, and then hit the button for the elevator and quickly run out. I also leveled up Typhoon, because that's what I'll be using to get myself out of bounds shortly. So I grab the extinguisher, head up on this little ledge, and now I'm trying to take the extinguisher out of bounds. It's kind of tough to do. You pick it up and you simultaneously sweep your cursor to the side, and that moves the extinguisher out of bounds, but it's kind of hard to do, especially if the hose of the extinguisher is to the side, so I messed it up a couple times. Here I have my back to the wall and I use the Typhoon. Whenever you use the Typhoon, your body sort of moves backwards and a little bit up, and that can take you out of bounds, which it does here. And now I need to get this fire extinguisher on top of the elevator, which I mess up twice. So this is another of the areas in this run where I could really improve, because I think I lost like 15 seconds in total between my 4 mistakes with trying to get the fire extinguisher where I wanted it to go. So I'm kind of disappointed with that. But the boost itself here goes really smoothly. So I put the extinguisher down parallel to the edge, put a mine on one side, line myself up, walk into the other end of it, and we're at the end of this area. That's probably my favorite glitch in the game, and that's also something that I think I'm really good at doing. I just sucked at that one part of it, so like, all the parts of this run that I feel like I'm the most consistent at, I messed up in this run, and all the stuff I feel like I struggle with the most, I got first try. So, this is definitely a run that I would like to see improved. This elevator takes a full minute, which is kind of unfortunate. You can do a triple mine boost plus a grenade boost to skip to the end of it, but we haven't yet figured out a way to route out all the extra mines and grenades that you need to pull that off. So it's not a part of the route just yet. And it may not ever be, because it may just take too long to get those. We'll see. And again, all the hard work and figuring out how to do all this stuff was done by other people that run this game. I haven't been running it for very long, just 3 weeks, so I just do what they tell me to do and it works out. If you want to learn the run yourself, Pen Again has a really good tutorial, which I used to learn this exact run 3 weeks ago. So check out his YouTube channel. Just go to twitch.tv/PenAgain. There should be a link to his YouTube, and you can find the tutorial there. Or just search YouTube for Human Revolution Speedrun Tutorial. You should be able to find it. Here I shoot as soon as that cutscene ends, which gets these enemies to run out, and then I throw a grenade at them. It's a concussion grenade, and that stuns all of them long enough for me to get by into the exit elevator. Now in this next area there are 2 robots, and you need to disable both before you can open the hangar doors and allow Malik to land and exit the mission. So I have 2 EMP grenades, and it just takes 1 grenade to disable each one. So I wait till it comes out of its box, throw a grenade at it, throw a grenade at the other one on the other side, and then head up to the button that opens the hangar doors. Alright, so next area is Picus Communications. Also, while I'm waiting for Malik to land, I pick up a few items which I'm going to be needing later. So the next area is Picus. It has what is probably the most difficult glitch in the game, where you clip into the funicular elevator. It's very difficult because the door to the elevator sort of has two layers to it, so you have to clip inside one layer, and then you clip into the next layer, and then you clip out of that. And all of that has a lot of subtlety and really difficult alignment stuff that just makes it really, really tough. This is definitely the thing that I've practiced the most, and it's the thing that has ruined a lot of runs, both of myself and other people who run this game. So here you can clip out of bounds just by jumping on top of that. You're not normally supposed to get on this side of the railing. Then you can jump over the edge and land right next to the elevator. So right now I'm actually sort of on top of the elevator, and this is the door that I have to get through. So I use this box. You have to line up perfectly parallel and in the right spot, and then release the box at exactly the right time, look to the left, walk forward, crouch and move left, and then wiggle around in a kind of strange way to get through that part of the door. Like, that can take people minutes to get, and I got it in like 10 seconds, so of everything I did in this run, that's probably the thing I was most proud of. That particular glitch can take a lot of tries to get. I've had so many runs where I've done the half hour before this, and then I get to that part, and I just can't get it for a minute, and then that's the end of that run, on to the next. So that is actually just incredibly difficult to do. I'm really happy I got it. And as my reward, I get to wait through this 2-minute elevator. I don't really get why this elevator takes 2 minutes. Like, there's this conversation with Pritchard, but it only lasts for half the time. And for the rest of it, you're just sort of sitting there waiting. It's rather unfortunate. Once I get to the bottom, there's just a boss fight left, which I can get to by clipping through a wall to the next floor down. The boss fight is pretty fast. I think it might be the longest boss fight in the game. It certainly takes longer than Barrett's, because you have to use grenades instead of just mines, but it still only takes 3 grenades to kill her. Elevators sure are fun. Honestly, like, if there's one thing in modern games that is just really annoying for speedruns, it's elevators. I've played so many games, especially like Bioshock Infinite, done so many speedruns that just have like minutes of the run sitting in elevators waiting for them to get to their destination. And there's like no reason for it. Like, loading times are not so long that we need to wait 2 minutes for this area to load. It's absurd. Alright. So here you just run past these guys, because they almost never are able to kill you unless the shotgun guy gets super lucky. I use this box to clip through this wall, which gets me down to the next floor. And then the boss fight is just on the other side of this door here. Or I guess the door to the right. Yeah. This door. Right, so the way I do this boss fight is a bit slower than you could theoretically do, and that other people actually do. I throw 3 grenades at her, but I sort of space out the grenades, because if you throw them too quickly, then one grenade explosion can bounce the next grenade away from her, and it won't actually deal damage. So I space them out. But if you throw the grenades, like, almost straight up, and, like, in the right direction, then they'll explode as they fall on her, and you don't have to worry about the grenades bouncing each other away. Unfortunately, that's kind of tough for me to pull off, and I don't always get it. And since this run was on such good pace, I just decided to take the easy strat that just always works. So that was like maybe 2 seconds slower than you could theoretically get it. But I'm fine with that. Also, you have to wait a bit before you can actually talk to Malik, so I spend that time grabbing some extra supplies in the boss room. And now we go to the second time you go to Detroit. There's also a somewhat long quest sequence here, but we skip past most of it just by clipping through a single wall. It's pretty great. So here, I'm at the top of Jensen's apartment complex area, but you can actually just clip and fall straight to the bottom. So I clip through this door. You can actually just use the Icarus landing system to cancel fall damage, but you can also just ride a fire extinguisher all the way down, which is so much cooler. If you do it really well, it's actually about a second faster, because you don't have to wait through the Icarus landing animation. But using a fire extinguisher is just so much fun. That trick is swag. Alright, so now you normally have to go to the convention center and then find Taggart's accomplice and do all sorts of other things, and then you return to the top of Jensen's apartment, and Malik flies you away to Seraph headquarters, because there is now a wall that separates Detroit from Seraph headquarters. But that wall can be bypassed with the use of this box. Strangely enough, you can actually just enter Seraph headquarters through the front door. Normally you would never have to use this door because you just fly there instead of walking there. But for some reason the door is still like usable. So you can just click through this wall. You're not supposed to be able to get through this wall at any point. Like the area I'm in right now is really out of bounds. Like you're not supposed to be here. But you can just head to Seraph Industries and use this door. And then the game recognizes that you're in Seraph and it's like, wait a second, you shouldn't be here yet. You're supposed to take Malik here. So it's like, well, I guess you're here now, so we'll just start the Malik cutscene, and then you're at the helipad. And that was Detroit 2.
Super. Alors je suis censé faire quoi,
Sequence
au
breaking
juste?
is so much fun. Alright, so now I have to take this elevator up. In the meantime, I'll explain that, let's see. Alright, so you may notice that the length of this run in real time is longer than the time I've actually posted of 39 minutes and 27 seconds. And the reason behind that is 39:27 is calculated with time without loads. So the timer that we use automatically pauses during loading screens, and that takes out the time spent in loading screens so that somebody with a solid state drive and a really good computer doesn't have an unfair advantage over everybody else. Alright, so that little bit of menuing there I used to level up Stealth to Stealth 2. The enemies for the rest of the game can kill you pretty easily, so Stealth is just a really good way of not having to deal with any of that. And then I level up the difficulty to normal, because in the next area, as soon as I take Malik's helicopter to Hengsha 2, there's a fight sequence where Malik dies, and you have to wait for her to die before you can actually leave, and putting the difficulty up to normal makes her die somewhat faster. So putting the difficulty up to normal actually speeds this part up. So here I'm going to be using Stealth to get through this fight safely. So run forward, Stealth as I'm jumping over the helicopter. And then just head straight to the elevator and leave Malik to her fate. So normally when you use this elevator, there's a cutscene where somebody comes and shoots Malik in the head. But I actually get to skip that by jumping on top of this elevator button. There's a trigger in this elevator shaft with that triggers Pritchard's dialogue right here. And if you hit that trigger in time, then Malik's cutscene is skipped and she dies by taking damage here, instead of dying from that triggered cutscene, which normally happens if you enter the elevator early. And the cutscene with Malik takes longer than just her dialogue here, so by quickly jumping on top of the elevator button, I'm able to save a bit of time. Rip Malik.
Farida.
So now we're in the last part of the game. There aren't really any like long story sequences from here on out. It's just running two objectives and clipping through some more walls. So now here's Hengsha 2. We'll be spending a bit more time in Hengsha now than we did last time, but not by much. To start, you basically just head straight to the sewers and talk to Tong. And that allows you to head to the, I guess the shipping dock. And that's where you head off to Singapore. Doing sprint jumping through this area is actually fairly difficult because there's a lot of stuff overhead that blocks you as you're jumping. I got caught a little bit earlier. So this area is a particularly difficult place to go quickly just because you have to pay attention to so much of your environment to make sure you don't bump your head. So here's a sewer that heads to Tong. All the enemies in this area kill you very, very quickly. I climbed down 6 rungs there because if you fall down any earlier, then the Icarus landing animation starts, and that wastes a bunch of time. So by climbing down 6 rungs and then dropping off, you don't have to wait through that animation. Alright, so in this area, like all for the rest of the game, this is why I've been collecting so many energy items, because you have to refill your energy fairly frequently. to keep your stealth up as you're passing by all these enemies. Once I talk to Tong, all the enemies in this area will no longer aggro on you, and you can just exit safely. So we skip through this very, very long conversation. And then I pick up the laser rifle, which I'll be using against the final boss. Laser rifle is very helpful on the final boss, as you will shortly discover. Now we're in the shipping area that takes you to Singapore. In this area you have to grab a bomb and then place it on the administrator's desk and blow it up. And once you grab the bomb, there's a conversation that starts with Tong, and you have to wait for that conversation to end before you can actually exit the area. So once you pick up the bomb, it's basically just waiting for that conversation to end. Here to get over the gate, I'm going to be jumping on top of this like electrified roof. Normally it kills you, but if you use a healing item as you're taking damage, then you can survive. So I just used my last healing item, but that's also the last time I'll really need it. And there's the bomb I pick up, so now this starts this conversation with Tong that you just have to wait for the end of.
Secret de tradition chinoise. Écoutez, vous allez déposer ce paquet dans le bureau du directeur Wang. Posez-le sur son bureau et activez-le.
And of course at this point, when I was actually doing the run, I was very, very excited, because I was on really good pace. Like at this point I knew that it would be world record as long as I didn't make huge mistakes. And sometimes that makes me mess up just because I get like really jittery and afraid, and it's like, I'm not sure if I can do this, oh god. But I was able to keep my cool this time around. And that may just be because it was an offline run, and I didn't have to worry about having an audience at the time. I think it does help my focus somewhat if I do offline runs, but obviously like I also love streaming, so I felt kind of guilty for getting a world record offline, but it is what it is. And again in this area, I just use stealth as I'm passing through all these enemies. Whenever you see this screen sort of flash orange, that's either stealth activating or deactivating. Let's make it past those guys. So here you're supposed to rescue the 3 scientists, and that allows you to open the door up ahead, but doors and walls are no obstacle, so I just grab this box and head over to that door and clip through the wall next to it. There's also a boss fight here with Namir, but I'll also be just skipping that entirely. So I clip my way halfway into that wall and then walk through the trigger that's sort of within that door, which allows me to exit the area. However, I skipped the trigger that actually loads this area. What I'm in right now is the hallway after the Namir boss fight. So I use visual cues to know where I am in this hallway so I can get to the exit. And that was the door to Megan Reed's room. And we're basically just done with Singapore. I've gotten lost down there quite a few times as I was learning the run, but it's not all that complicated. It's basically just a single 90-degree turn, and you just have to know when to make it. And now we're almost to the end of the run. All that's left is Panchaea, which has probably the second most difficult glitch to pull off in the game, which is always fun. It really sucks to have a really good run going and then to mess up at like the very last second. But it certainly happens. Obviously, it went well this time because this is a world record. Also, major shoutouts to Pen again, who previously had the world record to this game. He is an awesome guy. He's also my main competition in the Shadow of Mordor speedrun, so we've had some prior history. And again, he's the guy that made the tutorial for this game, so I really owe him everything. Here you don't actually have to shoot these guys or anything, I just do it because it's fun. I take a bit more damage than I meant to, so at this point I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be risking it, but it was alright. Alright, now here's Panchaea. There are 2 difficult areas in this game. One is called Omega Clip, where you clip through a door, and this door is also, I suppose, thicker than most other doors, so it's more difficult to clip through. Then there's Star Wars Bridge, which is a pretty fun sequence.
Mais le signal est toujours émis.
Et personne ne sera en sécurité tant que je ne l'aurai pas coupé.
Vous devrez d'abord débloquer l'ouverture de la station. Il doit y avoir un terminal de commande.
Alright, so for Omega Clip, you have to use a box to clip halfway into a door, and then you use Typhoon to clip the rest of the way through it. but you have to get your alignment kind of precise, and you have to clip far enough into the door that the Typhoon clip actually works, and that can be kind of tough to pull off. So I'm going to head down here, grab this box, and then the door I'm going to clip through is right behind me. So I line myself up parallel, back into it, use a setup here that DJF Paul taught me, which really helped. I just did exactly his setup and it worked first try here, so huge thanks to him for helping me figure that out. Then we're in the final stretch. You don't actually have to visit Seraph or Taggart. You can just head straight to the end and not bother with them. So normally there's a very, very long elevator that takes you down to the final boss fight, but we can skip past all of that by clipping through a wall at the end of a Star Wars bridge coming up ahead. And at this point I'm of course very, very excited. I got a little bit hung up there, unfortunately. I don't even know what I got hung up on. Alright, so the strategy for Star Wars Bridge is actually kind of precise. I'm going to shoot an explosive container to kill some of the crazies, which is the name for the enemies in this area. Then I'll throw a gas grenade to deal with most of the rest of them, and then I'm going to use stealth to get past the remainder. I also have to take one of these boxes on the right along with me to clip through a wall at the end of this bridge. So I run along the railing. Normally I just jump over those guys. I kind of messed it up so they hit me a few times, but fortunately they did not apply the slow that they usually apply, so I got kind of lucky there. So I clip halfway into this wall, I throw an EMP grenade. It took me a while to realize that I had not actually yet equipped the grenade, which is why I sort of paused for a few seconds there. And the reason I use the EMP grenade is I wait until a visual cue where failure shows up in the middle of your screen, and so long as the EMP grenade is active on you, it disables the Icarus landing system, and that allows you to fall most of the way down without the Icarus animation starting, so it starts right as you almost hit the floor. And this is the final boss. She's protected by bulletproof glass, but glass is not laserproof, so she just dies to the laser gun. And then we are on the final choice of the game, which isn't really much of a choice, because one is faster than the rest, and it is this one. You can't select the others because you never visited Seraph or Taggart, and the self-destruct option takes a while to get to, so you just choose the Hugh Darrow confession, and that is the end of the speedrun. So I'm going to put some links in the description both to Pentagon's tutorial as well as to the Human Revolution leaderboards. I fully expect that somebody's going to beat this run in the not too distant future, so if you want to see who has the current world record, so if this is currently the record or if somebody set a new one, head to the leaderboards, check that out, follow everybody that runs this game because they're all amazing people. Oh, they really are. I love those guys. And thanks so much for watching. I'm hoping to do a lot more post-commentaries in the future. Basically, whenever I get a world record, I'm hoping to do a post-commentary like this because I really enjoy doing them, and based on the feedback from the Dark Souls 2 one, you guys love watching them, so hopefully I can set more world records in the future and get to do cool stuff like this. So thanks so much for watching. You can follow me at twitch.tv/fruitfulferret, where I stream a lot of speedruns. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I post my world records and also other speedrun related stuff that I'm proud of. And I'll see you guys around. Thanks so much for watching.
La technologie sert à faciliter notre quotidien, pas nos décisions. Les problèmes